Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. It's episode 1412. Here live with Miss Mara, spinning the dials. And we got some transcendental leftovers from Chant Camp. Bali and Dunny are around here somewhere. We got Catherine A. We got Bhakti Udi and Henry. Henry's moving to Florida. He's moving to the motherland, Alachua. Thought we had to share that with the group. He just surprised me.
That's a big move.
It's a big move. The guy's never left Washington, D.C. since he was born. And now he's getting out of the nation's capital and going to the Krishna capital of Alachua. Smart. I think it's a smart move.
All right.
Yeah, my son's down there.
What about the alligators, the hurricanes, the diseases?
Yeah, he's got a gated community. They don't come in there. They don't allow tropical diseases and alligators in gated community. Although those gators, they can climb fences. End up right in your swimming pool. How are you, Kaustubha?
I'm pretty good, Raghu. Pretty good.
Winding down from that chant camp and gearing up for this weekend. I leave. When do we leave? Thursday for Tom's River. We got a New Jersey, Philadelphia
You're leaving this
extravaganza. I'm leaving this Thursday for a program in Tom's River, which is almost sold out, by the way. And then Friday's a book signing and a kirtan. Get to do a kirtan with Haryashva. Creep Records. Good name for a record store. And Saturday's event is sold out. That's that 6-hour one.
6 hour what?
6 hours of me, man. What do you mean?
Where?
What?
What 6 hours? In what form?
We do yoga. We do kirtan. We tell stories. We do
okay.
stuff like that. 6 hours of that.
Where's that again?
And that's at that's in Marlton, but that one's sold out. We got like 50.
That's people. Sunday, you said?
That's Saturday. Sunday I'm doing the show at Yoga Bohemia. That's Katie Risbaum.
Right.
Studio in Long Beach Island, and that's in the morning. And I do the interview with the guys from Cowspiracy.
Oh, right, Cowspiracy. Oh, that's my day off then, huh?
That's your day off. You got a day off.
Is Monday Radhastomi then?
Wednesday is Radhastomi.
Is it?
And I'm going to celebrate. Then I'm leaving. I'm coming back, and I'm leaving Wednesday to go to DC, stay with Henry. I'm doing a book table or something. What am I doing, Henry? At the temple in DC in Potomac. I'll be there. I'm giving a class in a kirtan, maybe. And that'll be good. Have a good official temple Radhastomi. And then Thursday, Shelter starts some shows.
Well, look at you.
Yeah. Thursday I'm in a library. What do you think of that? I'm in a library doing a book signing in a library.
You're just a man of many faces. One day you're in the hardcore show, then you're in the temple, then you're in the library, then you're in the yoga studio.
Many, many hats I wear.
All right.
What's up, Mayor?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor.
How are you feeling?
Good. We should wish a happy birthday to vegan trucker Shanakarishi.
What?
Vegan
trucker. He's one of the originals from the podcast.
Yeah. Mayor, I think you got to pull your microphone, straighten it out a little so you're getting right into it or something.
This is the one that's
Vegan
missing.
trucker's birthday. Okay.
Also, if Wisdom of the Sages has been helpful in your life and you'd like to contribute to our work, please log on to wisdomofthesages.com and become a supporting member of our Sage community platform. For a modest minimum $5 monthly contribution, you get wide access to a wide range of live and archived classes, community chat, merch, retreat registrations, and much, much more.
I think that this Wednesday, my part 3 of the course I did on the Gita drops.
Ooh, and we got some stuff from Raghu from this.
And as I say, next week, maybe Raghu will drop some stuff there.
I dropped some stuff.
All right. What are you dropping? What is it called again?
One is the Krishna Olympics.
Krishna's not something like Sweet Baby Krishna's not a masochist or something.
Not a sadist.
Not a sadist. Okay.
Krishna is not a sadist. Is my other class I gave.
So that'll
Yeah.
drop maybe next week. We can drop some of that stuff. So there's lots of stuff on that new platform.
Yeah.
Patreon is dead,
Patron's dead, is dying.
and this is better, much better than Patreon.
It's just easier to navigate your way through, and you
and
get
it's all under
$5.
one umbrella, and we're going to be dropping really good, fresh content nonstop over there.
Yeah.
Raghunath's into it now. He's caught on. He's like, okay, I'm going to record my
I'm
stuff.
going to record this. And every time, well, what happens is I start giving the class and then I go, oh,
Yeah,
I forgot to record this for Kostuba. So I'm going to pretend like I'm starting the class over.
See the class you give in Potomac on Radhasmi? We want that, Raghunath.
You want
the talk
okay,
that you
good
give
have-
at the
you can have
library?
it.
We want that too.
Okay.
We want a bootleg of your concert. We want that up there as well.
We want Purcell's guitar picks. Okay.
All right. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, we got some nugget for us today.
Well, today, we were gonna instead of a nugget or we could say today's nugget is, we kind of yesterday we're getting into that snake and the rope thing.
We're going to beat that snake more.
We're gonna go more into that because it's just, I don't know, it's just such a fundamental, important topic,
Okay, it was sometimes you see a rope at night at dusk when you can barely see, and you might think it's a snake, and out of fear you jump. But the fact is, it was not real. It was a rope.
Yeah.
But the point was being made that unless you knew what a snake was, you wouldn't even jump.
Okay.
So there has to be some reality where that's.
Yes. So let's get into that. I'm going to give more issues with that Advaitic understanding, the presentation of the snake and the rope. There's a way that the Bhakti-Vedantas explain it. There's a way that the Advaita Vedantins explain it. But
It's a Vedic analogy. Yeah.
Yeah, but before we get back to that analogy, we just need like a little background. Just a little background. I mean, obviously the comparison or the debate, you could say, between these two schools of Vedanta goes back many, many centuries. And it's not something that we can deal with quickly, but at least we can share some of the nature of the conversation, And where we ended yesterday, I brought up a verse. It's from the Chandogya Upanishad, this Sarva khalvidam brahma.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those classic Vedic statements that are highlighted as really important statements to help us understand philosophy. And some of these statements are where you can really understand the difference in the interpretation or the understanding or the explanations of these two different philosophical schools, the Advaitin Vedantins and the Bhakti Vedantins. So that verse, I pulled it out of the Chandogya Upanishad. It's part of a larger verse. You want to hear that verse, Raga?
Yeah.
It's nice. This is Chandogya Upanishad 3:14:1.
Okay.
Sarva khalvidam brahma. All this is Brahman. All this is Brahman. Everything comes from Brahman. Everything goes back to Brahman. And everything is sustained by Brahman. One should therefore quietly meditate on Brahman. Each person has a mind of their own. What a person wills in their present life, they will become when they leave this world.
Mm-hmm.
One should bear this in mind and meditate accordingly. Okay, nice, right? I mean, that's like a classic Upanishadic statement right there, right?
But it's also a very, like, that in itself is such a powerful statement because we're meditating. People tend, well, this is for meditators. No. We're all meditators. Hatred, sometimes we just hate people. That's a meditation. Hatred is a meditation. Lust, sometimes there's a lust of a sexual act. That's a meditation. Sometimes there's a greed for something. That's a deep meditation.
Sure.
What you think about when your head hits the pillow at night, that's like your meditation. Is it going to Krishna? Is it going to some other thing? Someone just shared this very serious thing because I quoted Yum Yum Vapi Smaram Bhavam.
Okay.
And
which is
a similar thing. You get what you meditate on, basically. You become
Mm-hmm.
what you meditate
your next
on.
birth.
Yeah, and this is a person that's very sincere in bhakti. And as she's been getting more sincere. The whole material world's been shifted. A lot of you might notice this. As you get more sincere about your spiritual world, your world starts to shift. And you're like, Krishna is like, are you sure you're serious about this? And you're like, yes, I am. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Right. You keep going with your path. And then Krishna goes, okay, try this on for size. So she's been rolling with it, rolling with all the changes in her life. And then she says that, her job is that she's an editor. And she said, when you quoted that in class.
Was she, did she ask the question on Saturday?
Well, she didn't ask no, she didn't. No. She said, when you asked this and when you mentioned this in class, it struck me in a deep way because I'm a professional editor and I'm very good at it. But I work for a big company and we do television shows that are all like documentaries on serial killers.
Okay.
And she's like, and that is what's in my mind all day long. And she's like, I justify it because I feel like I'm giving a voice to these people that have loved ones that have died, but I can't help but think this is my meditation all day. And so people on a bhakti path, they start to become, what's happening is we're becoming more aware of not just what we put in our mouth, but what we put in our mind on a regular basis, because it's creating us. It's creating our consciousness. And then sometimes we have to weigh that out with like, okay, I've got to survive. This is my job. But sometimes we get to this tipping point where like, nope, I was making good money as a bartender, but I'm not doing it anymore. Sometimes we get that. We get to this point where like, it's over. That part of my life is over. And we just trust that Krishna's got some bigger, greater, more beautiful plan than we could even imagine. Krishna is real. He does reciprocate. He's not just a picture on a wall or a little statue. He's a reciprocating force that is trying to draw us in like a transcendental riptide, ripping us right into the great spiritual ocean, right? And we're attached to being on this dirty Jones Beach, the Long Island Sound, or
Rockaway Beach of the 70s.
And Chris is trying desperately to pull us in. Anyway.
All right. So again, back to the verse from the Chandogya Upanishad. All this is Brahman. It's encouraging us to do exactly what Raghunath is saying. Is, hey, consider that where your mind goes is very consequential, right? It's going to determine your next birth. So therefore, meditate on Brahman. And this word Brahman, it's like one of those words in Sanskrit that there's no really good English translation for, and it's used in many different ways. So that's important. We need to understand what, according to the context, what exactly is being indicated by the word Brahman. Just like the word karma.
It's different than Brahma. Sometimes people mistake
Brahma,
Brahma,
four-headed deity. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's different than a Brahmana, which is like a priestly class.
It's related to that. Yeah, I mean, I suppose they're all related. Yeah. But Brahman. But even just taking the word Brahman, even Brahman is used in different ways. Just like karma, like karma is, I think in the popular Western world, when we say karma, we're generally speaking about the reactions to one's actions. Like, oh, you're going to get karma for that. You're going to get a reaction. I think if you go to the Indian schools of philosophy, fundamentally karma means action itself. Right. Generally, that's what they're talking about. And then karma also refers
for that.
Yeah, and then karma also refers to kind of like a worldview, a karmic worldview that, which is represented in the Karma Kunda, the karma division of the Vedic literature. That I can enjoy life through the process of action and reaction. And so like a word like karma is like that. There's other words. What are other Sanskrit words that are like karma is definitely one. Anyway, there's so many. The Atma, right? Atma, most fundamentally, when we use the word Atma, we're talking about the soul, the spiritual spark. But it becomes confusing sometimes because Atma, it means self. And fundamentally, the self is the soul, that spark. But in one sense, the body is the self. So Atma can mean body. In one sense, the mind is the self. So Atma can mean mind. But that really confuses things because most commonly we're trying to show the distinction between the body and the mind, and between the self, the distinction between the self and the body, or the self and the mind. So it's like that. So in any case, Brahman, what do we mean by Brahman? Brahman, commonly when we say Brahman, most conventionally, we're speaking about this spiritual energy as opposed to material energy, right? The spiritual energy. And the Advaitins, the non-dualists, or you could say impersonalists, their idea of Brahman is that it is this fundamental reality that underlies all objects and all experiences, and that it has no attributes. It has no, you see, the way that they look at the world and Brahman is they say, like, look at the suffering in the world. What is the suffering caused by? If you look at this world, the material realm, it's a realm of form. It's, it's a realm of individuality, right? There's me and there's you. That's duality, right? There's this form and that form. And in this realm, there's the element of time, which is always destroying the forms. And so their idea is that spirit must be the opposite of that. Spirit is bliss, and spirit being the opposite of matter, or Brahman being the opposite of matter, must have no form. There must be no individuality, no you and me, no duality whatsoever. That's their logic. And so for them, Brahman is this, it has absolutely no attributes. You can't, they'll even say that it can't be described with words. And they'll even say that all of the sacred texts that both the Advaita Vedantins and the Bhakti Vedantins accept as authoritative, they'll say that it can't describe reality. It can only point towards it, because reality can't be described.
Would they say there's no point of doing any good works in this world because it's ultimately an illusion anyway?
Well, that would be like an ultimate statement. But they would say there's good works will lead you gradually up to this idea where you understand that good works have no meaning, right? So it's like a stepping stone. But eventually, what's the point of working in this world when this world is entirely an illusion? And that's where we're going with the snake and the rope.
It's an actual rope. It's not a snake. There's no point in feeding the rope. There's no point in petting
because there's no snake there.
Yeah. There's no point in giving comfort to the rope because it's not a
or
snake.
Or running from the rope because there's no snake there. Now the Vaishnavas, or the Bhakti Vedantins, their understanding of Brahman is, yes, conventionally there is a feature of Brahman, a feature of spiritual energy that has no attributes, or that is just like divine light, is just a oneness. We call that the Brahma Jyoti, but we say that is all coming from the Para Brahman. This is straight Bhagavad-gita, right? Krishna will say, in the Bhagavad-gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. I am the basis of that impersonal Brahman. This is 14:27 in the Bhagavad-gita. I'm the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. But, he's saying that when you think of that attributeless spiritual energy, that's my energy, Krishna's saying. It's coming from me. I'm the source of that energy. And when Arjuna, in the 10th chapter of the Gita, Krishna makes a statement, it's considered by many of the great teachers to be one of the 4 nutshell verses of Bhagavad-gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo, mata sarvam pavartate, iti matva bhajante mam, buddha bhava samanvitaha. I'm the source of everything, right? I am the source of all spiritual material worlds. Aham sarvasya, of everything. Aham, I. Prabhava, it all generates from me. Mata sarvam pavartate, everything's coming from me. And that the wise, right, the Buddha, the wise, knowing this, matva bhajanti mam, they worship me, bhava samanvitaha, with bhava, with love, with all of their hearts, they worship me. So Krishna's saying everything's coming from me. There's nothing. All the gods come from me. All the planets come from me. It's all being generated out of me. And then Arjuna turns to him and says these famous prayers, really important prayers. Para Brahma, Para Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, right? You are the Supreme Person, right? You are the Supreme Brahman. He uses the term Para Brahman, right? You are, not only are you Brahman, you know, the foundational Vedic aphorism is Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, right? But he's saying you are part of Brahman. You are that spiritual energy from which all other spiritual energy emanates from, and all other varieties of energy emanate from. So Para Brahman, Para Dhamma, you are the highest abode of Pavitram Paramam Bhavan, you're the purest, the ultimate shelter. Purusham Shashvatam Divyam, you are that original person, right, from which all others come. Adidevam, you are the original God. You know, so he's saying, and he makes all these statements about it's this person, it's this form of Krishna, from which is the Parabrahman, is the form from which all spiritual energy emanates. And then he says this. He says, Ahustvam Rishya Sarve, the rishis or the sages, they all say this. Not just some sages, but Sarve, all the great sages say this about you. And then he says, Devarshi Narada says it. Asita says it. Devala says it. He's naming the A-list sages, right? And then he says, Vyasa says it. Now, Vyasa is the sage from which all the other sages draw from. It's Vyasa's literature, the Vedic literature, that both Advaita Vedantins and Bhakti Vedantins accept as authority. So he's saying, Vyasa says this about you, and now you yourself are declaring it to me. So this idea, the Vaishnava idea of Brahman, is that Krishna, a person, an unlimited, spiritual, transcendental, timeless form. From him emanates energy, and that energy he can transform it in a varieties of ways. So another Vedic statement is parasya, saktir, vividaiva, sruyate, that the Vedas speak of his exalted power, which is innate and capable of producing diverse effects. So it's saying that part of Brahman has energy that manifests in all different kind of ways. It manifests as pure spiritual energy without any attributes, which is what the Advaitins focus on, and they think is the only reality. But it also manifests as the material energy. And the example that the example that Prabhupada always gives for that, Roger, yeah.
What?
About his energy manifesting in different ways.
About the train?
Not the train. The train.
The sun, the train.
About electricity.
Electricity?
That electricity, the same electricity can manifest as refrigeration.
Heat and cold.
Or, it can manifest as a heater. It's one energy that manifests in multifarious ways.
Yeah, like the train that sometimes has a refrigerator car on board.
Sometimes it was the train.
Sometimes has a kitchen.
Sometimes that train has to be heated up. Okay, so then how do you deal with this aphorism Sarva khalvidam Brahma, that everything is Brahman? The Bhakti Vedantins are saying, yes, even this material world is in one sense Brahman because it's Krishna's energy. So Sarva khalvidam Brahma. The Bhakti Vedantins will say that the material energy is eternal. It's beyond time. It's just transforming, with the power of time. But the material energy itself is never destroyed. It just eternally is shifting. And but how do you understand Sarva khalvidam Brahma if from the Advaitin point of view? They say that it's not that there's some supreme being that it's all emanating from. They'll say that reality has zero attributes. You can't describe it in words. You can't say it's this or that. Like, give me any sentence, Raghunath. Just say a sentence.
I'm a little bit hungry this morning.
Okay, so in that sentence, there's a subject and there's a predicate, right? The subject is you, and the predicate is the description of you, right? I am hungry. So it means there's a subject, and then the subject has some attribute. Hunger is your attribute. Raghunath is hungry.
Mm.
The Advaitins are saying that reality has no, it has zero attributes. It's not, no duality. It's not big or small. It's not, black or white. You can't, they're saying that that's its glory, that it has none of that. And therefore, there's no language that can describe it, because any language is going to have subjects and predicates, and it's going to, any sentence is attributing attributes to a subject.
Mm.
And they're saying that reality has no attributes. It's just, and they're saying, what that means is that all form is illusion, and all individuality is illusion, that I am me and you are you, or that there's me and there's God as eternally individual beings. All that is thrown out the window.
Sounds very attractive if you're coming from
On one level.
an Abrahamic tradition where God has been feared.
Yes, God can't be a tyrant if he has no attributes.
He has no attributes at all.
He can't be cruel. He can't be judgmental.
This was my point I was making in Sweet Baby Krishna is not a sadist. Like a father, wants to punish a kid, in order to their crime, so to speak. He was late. Okay, go to your room, sit down, be quiet. How long do I have to be in my room? You just go there for 1 hour, you come back, or I'll come up and get you. But when we talk about breaking rules, at least in Judeo-Christian, Islamic culture, the karma you get for that, or the punishment you get for that, is you go to hell. You go to your room eternally, and we're setting your room
and your
on
room's
fire.
on fire.
Yeah, and there's no way out forever.
Right.
It's like, really? Yeah, forever. Like, what kind of God is that? How can you do that? So the way that God is presented in the Vedic teachings is well, one, in this case, it's formless. It's you are God, not like God is some person out there that's going to do something to me. In the Bhaktivedantas, we don't say that either. Especially within Krishna Bhakti, Krishna is adorable. How can you have we were using
that's an attribute. It's
an attribute. He's adorable.
Eternally adorable.
Yeah, and who can have we were joking, like, who could have a fear-based relationship with, like, Bali and Dunya's little 3-year-old? It's like, I'm not going to go in the kitchen. Abhideya's in there. I'm not going in there. You can't fear Abhideya. He's adorable. In the same way, you cannot fear Sweet Baby Krishna. He's charming. He's adorable. His feet are very cute. His hands are very cute.
Well, Krishna will say that he'll manifest to you according to the way that you approach him. Right? So to some, he manifests as death, right? Also, like, after Arjuna says those prayers that I read earlier, you're a Pada Brahman, you're all the sages say this about you. Then he says, show me how you are everything, right? I want to see it myself. I've heard it from the great sages. I've heard it from Vyas. I want to see it with my eyes. And Krishna says, you can't see that with your, I'll give you divine eyes to see it. And then he manifests the universal form, which is like the entire universe emanating from the body of Krishna. Everything beautiful and everything ugly in this world, everything fascinating and everything.
Great weather, lots of devotees, and alligators.
But everything satisfying and beautiful, and everything fearful and terrifying. And Arjuna sees that, and it's like overwhelming for him. It's like, whoa, take it back. I can't see it. But Krishna shows, all of Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, everything generates from this spiritual form of mine. So you have two fundamentally different ideas. There's a verse in Brahma Samhita which describes this Bhakti Vedantic view of the Brahman, which is Yasya Prabhava Pravato Jagananda Kotim. This is Brahma Samhita 540. I worship Govinda, that's Krishna, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited. and which displays, so that's the part that the advaitins are focused on. This, it's absolute, it's complete, it's unlimited. But then it's going further and saying, which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences in millions and millions of universes. So here is saying that Brahman is also, not only does it have its attributeless state, but just like electricity can transform into other ways, it's the potential seed of all creation, right? All creation is made possible by Brahman's potential power. And therefore we get this world which is real and unreal. They'll say this world is entirely unreal. We'll say it's real and it's unreal. And we use examples like, say, like a movie theater, right? You go into a movie theater, you're watching, the lights go out, you're watching the film. Is the film real or unreal? Well, the characters that are in the film don't actually exist. The plot in the film doesn't actually exist. But the screen exists, and the light on the screen exists. So you can't say that the movie is unreal. It's real and it's unreal. And that's where we kind of started with
analogy.
the verse.
I like that.
That's where we where the verse hit yesterday. But let's take that now to the snake and the rope, right? In this analogy that's being used. The idea is that in this analogy, the rope represents Brahman. That's the real, right? The rope is actually the real thing that's there. So that's Brahman. Brahman is reality. And the snake is in one sense, it represents this world. Like we look at reality and instead we see this world from the Advaitic point of view, which is an illusory world. So I looked at the rope, but I saw a snake. That's the illusion of this world, is the snake. And the darkness of the night is the ignorance which facilitates that illusion. And the light of the morning, when you go out and see the snake in the morning and see that it's only a rope, it wasn't a snake, then that represents knowledge, or, jnana. So with the right knowledge, one will look at reality, the Brahman, the rope, and recognize it as a rope, not a snake. Mm. And so we mentioned one problem with this. So this is how Shankaracharya, the great Advaitin teacher, he used this analogy to explain that this is what's happening to us when we see the variety. If Sarva khalvidam brahma, if everything is Brahman, and from the Advaita point of view, Brahman is an attributeless oneness that has no qualities whatsoever, then what is going on when we see this world with all its qualities and all its forms and all in its individuality? I'm me and you're you, and etc. What's happening? It's all just an illusion, and they're saying yes, it's all just an illusion. It's like Brahman is the rope, and we're superimposing ideas, upadis, false designations or false attributes onto that spiritual energy. So just the way that you superimpose the idea of a snake onto a rope and you feel fear and you suffer because we're superimposing ideas of duality onto the oneness that is Brahman. And because of that duality, we experience fear and pain and suffering and all of that. But with the light of jnana, when you hear from the Shastras and you hear from the Guru that this is the case, then you'll see it again as there's only oneness. And when you fully get that, you yourself realize there is nothing but this Brahman. I am this Brahman. And all of this has just been an illusion. Okay. So then the problem, one problem that we mentioned with that yesterday was that in order to superimpose any idea onto another reality, that idea that you're imposing has to exist in reality, right? How can you, if you've never seen a snake, or let's take it even further, if snakes don't exist, how are you going to look at a rope and say it's a snake? There has to be a snake in reality in order to impose it on another object. And so if we're going to stick with this analogy, then the variety and the individuality of this world, in order for that to be imposed upon Brahman, it must exist in reality. And so right there, like the thing falls apart. Now here's another issue with it. In order to mistake a rope for a snake, there has to be some similarities in the attributes between the two things, right? Like, you don't look in the dark and see a rope and think that it's a bowling ball.
Right.
Because a bowling ball is round, and, a rope and a snake, they both have a similar shape, and they both coil up, So because there's a similarity in attributes, you might confuse one for the other. You might confuse in the dark a bowling ball for a basketball. You might confuse a bowling ball with
volleyball.
A volleyball, because they have similar attributes in shape and size.
A human head.
You might think that it's a human head. You might think so. But you're not going to think that it's a snake. And so there needs to be a similarity in attributes between two objects to mistake one for the other. How can there be a similarity in attributes between this world and Brahman if Brahman has no attributes? It becomes impossible to mistake Brahman for anything else if Brahman has no attributes. There's also the question of prior experience. In order to impose a snake onto a rope, I need to have had experience with the snake. I need to have seen one myself. If all there is Brahman, if you are Brahman, I am Brahman, the idea that we're separate individual is all illusion. If there's only Brahman and no variety, no duality, no other object than Brahman, then what is it? What is it that we had prior experience outside of Brahman to impose upon Brahman? There's nothing to experience outside of Brahman.
Right.
And then we also mentioned yesterday, like
you would have had to seen a head, decapitated head, if you were walking through a basketball and you're like, oh my God, it's a head. Oh no, it's just a basketball.
Or at least a head. Maybe not a decapitated one, but at least a head.
Maybe you've seen a decapitated head on a field or your driveway before.
Yeah, exactly. So if there is no other object than Brahman, if all existence is just attributeless oneness, then how can you post something separate on top of that? It just doesn't make sense. And then we also mentioned yesterday, how is it that if my seeing this world as real is an imposition that I'm placing on this world, superimposition that I'm placing on this world, well, why is my superimposition the same as Raghunath's superimposition? Why do we both, walk around this world and we're seeing the same things,
right,
in the same places? How is it that our total illusion, total mind fantasy are all aligning up? There would have to be an organizer outside of Brahman somehow coordinating that illusion. And now again, you have a separate being outside of Brahman. So these are some of the responses that like the Bhaktivedanta philosophers have used to speak to this. There's a few other analogies. We won't get into them now, but like that advaitins use that also kind of crack like this. They kind of dissolve when they're taken a bit deeper. When an advaitin, we find in our opinion that when an advaitin will try to speak to these responses, usually becomes a word jugglery game. Usually you get a big word salad that gets vaguer and vaguer and vaguer as you go. Whereas we find that the explanation, the Bhaktivedanta explanation, is kind of really practical. How are you going to tell me that this world doesn't exist at all? I'm experiencing it at every moment. They'll say the world cannot be described with words. It's just beyond everything. There's no explanation. It's kind of like if you don't want there to be a person in the picture, then you might embrace it. But it's really involves some twisting of the mind and twisting of words to buy into.
I really like it's real. It's just not what it appears to be.
It's just not, yes.
And I was like, yeah, that can make sense. I like the
That's right.
mirror. It's a mirror. It's a reflection. That makes
Ropes exist,
that's
snakes
something I could
exist.
sink my
And I
teeth
made a
into.
mistake.
Like, okay, I think love is this, but there's a higher love. I think success is this, there's a higher success. I thought purchasing things and purchasing a home, that will give me a type of security, but there's a higher security.
Right.
And when you see it like that, then you realize, yeah, it is something. It's just not what it's been promising. The material world isn't what it's been promising it would be. And I've exhausted. I've gone to the very end of the line and it didn't deliver. And so maybe I'll try another line. Nope, that one didn't deliver too. And some people don't even have the karma to even finish the line. Like, if I could only make it, if I could only get to the top, if I could only accumulate enough wealth, if I could only go on a date with her, then I'd be happy. It won't be. It's something much higher. It's not of this world.
You know, also working with the same logic, and this becomes a really, just such a fundamental and kind of key to understanding existence. But, okay, the Advaitins are looking at this world and saying, this world is a place of suffering, right? Because even if you enjoy something, you get separated from it and then you suffer. So by nature, this world is a world of suffering. But they're also saying it's a superimposition. And the analogy that's used commonly, we have the snake in the rope, but also reflection is used, right? Commonly, we talk about it as reflection. Again, we would say that there is nothing in a reflection that exists that doesn't exist in reality. Anything reflected on the surface of a mirror has to exist in reality. So again, the same kind of response. But here's the idea: if they'll say that if this world is a place of suffering, and that the duality of this world causes suffering, then Brahman or reality must have no duality. It must be just oneness. There's no two. Then there's nothing to suffer from, right? Then there's nothing to get separated from. There's nothing to cause you pain. What the Bhaktivedantins say, and they'll say that that's the goal. That's the highest achievement, is to achieve that oneness. The Bhaktivedantins say that oneness, it exists, but it's just a neutral state. It's kind of like, we've used this analogy before. Let's say someone is holding your head underwater. When your head's under the water, your mind is just completely absorbed in anxiety. When will it end? When will it end? I need it to end. I need it to end. When will it end? I'm suffering. I'm suffering. I'm suffering.
Older
And then
brother,
someone
been
lets
there.
you out of the water and you take a breath, and all the suffering immediately dissipates. It's gone in an instant. And just breathing, you feel like, this is what I needed. This is relief. This is bliss. Oh, everything in the world is right now. So the bliss of Brahman that the Advaitins speak of, the Bhaktivedantins say that is just your relief of suffering. It feels like bliss in relation to the intense suffering of this world, but actually it's just a neutral state because we're breathing right now.
Right. We're not even
And we're not
noticing.
like, this is the greatest thing. It's only when you're suffering very intensely and you get that relief, you're like, oh, this is bliss. So the Bhaktivedantins are saying is that this world is a reflection of the spiritual realm. So the reflections are very similar to what's the source that's being reflected, but they're backwards or they're upside down. So whereas this is a world of variety and suffering that's painful, the source of that reflection must also have variety and individuality and form, but in full bliss. Right? It's just the opposite. And it's kind of like asking this question: if you say, what's the opposite of being $1 million in debt? Now that's a stressful position, to be $1 million in debt. What's the opposite of that? It's not to be free of debt. The Advaitins would say to be free of debt. The Bhaktivedantins would say to have $1 million is the opposite of being $1 million in debt. Right? It's a positive opposite rather than a nullifying opposite. right? It's a positive opposite. The advaitin process is nullifying. Not the supreme absolute reality must have none of the attributes of this world. Neti neti, right? No form, no color, no individuality. No, then it'll be free of suffering. But what they do is they throw out the baby with the bathwater. They throw out, because it's through individuality, it's through form that love is expressed. So they've taken love and they've just thrown that out with the bathwater, right? The Bhaktivedantins, they wash out all the duality, the false duality, and they preserve the spiritual individuality through which love is experienced, and they establish love as the highest principle.
You know, I think, Kostuba, if there are people that are like new to this, and you hear what Kostuba has been talking about this show, this comes up when you just stumble upon a yoga school in India, per se.
Sure.
And this is what you find, like, oh, this is what they're actually teaching. And Kostuba is really making it very, very clear the difference between this idea of bhakti, or this idea of mukti, or this idea of liberation, and liberation to be the highest, or bhakti to be the. They might appear, oh, they're doing yoga asanas, they're doing their neti pots, they're doing they're chanting mantras, they're even having a kirtan, but the final goal is much different. And it appears in one sense very much the same, but then there's a fork in the road at a certain point. Actually, the fork in the road is very at the beginning, because but you don't know it because it's covered by all these other accoutrements of a yoga system.
Yeah, everything is, in one sense, everything is similar except that final conclusion.
Right.
Or
And
at least
so-
so much is similar.
Anyway, some of you might hear this and say, okay, I get it, but it'll actually come really, really to life as you go deeper into your spiritual study, or if you start investigating, traditional ashrams, etc. It's a big difference.
You know, someone sent in a question, and maybe we can deal with it over the weekend. But it had to do with, you see, because the fact is that if you read the Upanishads, especially the Upanishads, there's going to be so many verses that lend themselves to the advaitin interpretation easily, quite easily. And the Bhaktivedantins will have to kind of say, well, that can't be understood literally. It has to be understood in this context. And then you're going to find other texts that go the other way, where the advaitins will have to kind of explain them away. So therefore, you have a debate that's been going on for centuries. Then the question becomes, well, how do you solve that? Ultimately, how do you, because I've been approaching that with logic here, right? They use an analogy. There's flaws in the analogy on the basis of logic. But ultimately, what both schools accept is not even logic. What they use logic to explain it, but what they accept is the proof, is the testimony of the Vedic literature itself. So we should be able to go right to that literature, but we're interpreting it in different ways. Then the question becomes, well, how do you ever solve that problem? If only the author of the Vedic literatures would tell us once and for all, how are we meant to understand this? And the glory of the Bhagavatam is that that's exactly what happens in Srimad Bhagavatam. That Vyasa is sitting here depressed, saying, people are misunderstanding my books, right? They're going to interpret them in ways that I didn't mean for them to interpret. They're going to take lower teachings that I had and think that they're the highest teachings.
How can you misinterpret the 10th canto?
Well, so therefore he says, I'm going to revise the Srimad Bhagavatam and express it in a way that cannot be misunderstood, where I explain that Bhakti Vedanta is that all of these Vedantic teachings evolved to the conclusion of Bhakti Vedanta. And so maybe we'll talk about that more this weekend. But that was our nugget. That was a whole show nugget.
That was yes. Mara, did you get any nuggets from that nugget?
I got some
Did you
good
break
goodies.
that giant nugget apart?
Yeah, I got some good stuff here. We're all meditators.
Yeah, we're all meditating one way or another, even if we don't realize it.
Refine what you consume because it creates your consciousness.
But
Very
don't
good.
eat refined food.
Refine it first.
God can't be a tyrant if he doesn't have any attributes.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, yes, but that's true. But we say he does have attributes, but he just has perfect attributes.
Krishna doesn't send you to your room on fire
He's
eternally.
not a tyrant.
He's not a sadist.
You need to experience a snake to superimpose it on a rope.
Faux show.
Krishna is eternally adorable.
Eternally.
It's not subject to time. His attributes are spiritual attributes. They never deteriorate.
The material world doesn't deliver.
It doesn't. I tried it. It was
It's a house of
good.
pain, actually.
It's a house of pain.
Mm.
Oh, yeah. That's a great name for a band now that I think about it.
The bliss of Brahman is just relief of suffering.
Mm-hmm. It's said that the bliss of Brahman
Imagine that. Oh,
is like a drop compared to the
great.
ocean of the bliss of bhakti.
Okay, so imagine you take the bliss of Brahman and feel that, like, oh,
yeah.
this is so good. And then all of a sudden, wait, there's more. Yes, there's like an ocean of bhakti. You're like, that must be incredible.
Ah.
I thought the bliss of Brahman was good.
Mhm.
And what's the last one?
And
And
don't let the advaitins throw out love with the bathwater.
Wait,
That's it.
what?
they're throwing Sweet Baby
happened?
Krishna out with the bathwater.
Yeah, don't throw out Sweet Baby Krishna with the bathwater. How about that? Thanks, everybody, for joining us. See you this week. Hey, who didn't get my book yet? It's time to get my book, Punk to Monk. Get it wherever you get books or Amazon. Sometimes I'll say, get it on Amazon. You'll get it the next day. People are like, how dare you use Amazon? All right, okay, don't get it on Amazon. Get it somewhere else.
You make me sick.
I'm not going to wrestle you about this one. Get it anywhere else you get it. Get it at your local bookstore. But you can also get it on Audible for those non-reading demographic of the population who just like, you know what? I don't read. It's okay. I read it to you. Audible or other places.
What corporate? Who's Audible? Was
Yeah.
it Google or
What?
something?
I don't know. Somebody owns it all. Amazon owns Audible. Oh, well, there's other platforms. I will come
There
to your
you go.
house and
Amazon
read it.
owns Audible.
You send me the money, I'll come to your house and read it to you. I'll read it to you over my phone. How about that? And-
Amazon, man, those guys.
You know, we're going to wind up our retreats here at the farm. Last one, Columbus Day weekend. Come on down. Me and Kastuba will be pillow fighting. Miss Mara will be cooking up a storm. Get some vegan meatballs up our sleeves. And
Nice.
we did eat well this weekend. Right, guys? So well, they say. So well. We ate, we danced, we sang, we enjoyed. You know what we did, Kastuba? We just talked. We just sat around, talked. Hung out with Braja Sundari Radha
Oh,
and
she's,
Timothy and Kate Tucker.
there's some pesto apparently.
Carol, Stacy Cabrera,
What kind of pasta?
and the Chief, and Lori.
Cavatelli.
Oh,
Cavatelli.
nice, nice touch. Have you ever done homemade pasta? Remember fresh?
Yeah, not in a while though.
I got a good machine. It's like a big one.
Oh yeah.
It makes all the difference. The small ones are like nearly impossible, and you
Yeah.
just get that much bigger, and it's just like. What did you have a good size one, or did you have like a big machine? Or
No, I didn't have a big machine. I had a small one.
one of those little ones?
Yeah, one of the little like hand cranked ones
That's
Maybe I
Christmas.
maybe I ought to
That's
bring
Christmas at the Capos, but they refuse
to make it egg
to
free.
make it egg free. They're just like, no.
my. So easy to make it egg
That's the
free.
way. I know. What is their problem?
Doesn't need it. Maybe I should bring my
There's a
pasta
lot of
machine
things that
up
have
to
eggs in it. You don't
Super
even
Soul.
need eggs.
Maybe you should be cooking for your family.
Maybe I should be cooking for my family.
Do you think I should bring my machine up there? Because I really never use it anymore. Would you do like ravioli and stuff like that?
Yeah,
Mara?
just keep putting stuff in this house. We got plenty of room.